Hi, my name's Charles Quinn, and I teach Japanese at Ohio State. If you've been learning Japanese and think you have some solid communicative skills under your belt, I'd like to suggest that you spend some time exploring what the Japanese language was like in its past. Find out what those Japanese had to say about things that mattered to them in their language. You sometimes hear it said that we foreign learners of Japanese ought to study one or more of Japan's regional dialects so that our notion of what's Japanese isn't limited to just the Tokyo-based standard language. Well, that's a point well taken, even if just getting good in that so-called standard takes years of serious effort and smart learning. Just as here in the United States, different regions in Japan have their own distinctive sound, and each dialect is typically associated with a larger regional character or stereotype. Some familiarity with those different voices and their stories gives us a more varied, fuller, and therefore realistic sense of Japan. You could call this the regional route to a bigger understanding of the Japanese people and how their talk is part of who they are. Another route to take, however, is to go back in time and get to know something about how people in Japan expressed themselves 1,000 or more years ago and work your way back to the present. We might call this the time traveler's route to a richer understanding of Japanese. Any Japanese today who has finished high school has taken at least a short trip back on this route and read some of the original texts of stories and songs that people have passed on over the centuries. If any Japanese high school grad has done this, shouldn't you give it a look too? Along this route, you'll meet many memorable characters in many a memorable tale. Some funny, some tragic, some inspiring, and each in its own particular voice. You'll see, in convincing detail, how different the same language can be at different times with different audiences, even as speakers and writers fashion their talk from most of the same basic moves: identifying, assuming, remembering, insisting, asking, explaining, quoting or alluding, guessing and wondering, affirming and denying. A Scots biologist by the name of Darcy Wentworth Thompson, born the year after Darwin's On the Origin of Species came out, once said, "Everything is the way it is because it got that way." If you want to understand something, you need to know some of the story of how it got the way it is. If you've ever wondered why this or that word or construction in today's Japanese means what it does, or why the particle ga in some contexts does work similar to the copula da, or where sentence final particles like ka and zo come from, then check them out in their earlier lives, or in the lives of their ancestors. You'll understand them all the better for the trip. The itinerary we're offering starts with selections from the 10th century Taketori Monogatari, the bamboo cutter's tale, which this website will introduce you to.